for Monday, October 8th, 2018. We have several presentations this evening. We will begin with the semi-annual report of the Independence Tourism Commission. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, Mayor, for efficiency's sake, the next 4 items are the semi-annual reports of our various sales tax committees. The Public Safety Committee unfortunately was unable to meet a few weeks ago because of a lack of a quorum, so the council will hear their presentation at an upcoming study session. But the rest of them are ready for council review tonight, starting with the Tourism Commission.
Thank you very much.
It's unusual to go first here. Mayor, Council. Hi. I'm Jim Allen, owner of Hawthorne Bed and Breakfast and Vice Chair of the Tourism Commission. I apologize for my voice here this evening. This is the biannual report to you on the transient guest tax, which is currently at the 6.5% that it's been since 2002. The funds from the 6.5% transient guest tax charged on gross hotel sales is responsible for funding our tourism department. There are currently 10 voting members on the commission. We have 1 vacancy that we're in the process of filling. Chair of the executive committee, Amy Williams, left for a super opportunity down at the Hermitage. We miss her dearly, but I've talked with Amy as recently as a couple days ago, and she's having the time of her life down there.
Yeah,
A little bit bigger facility with 1,300 acres, I guess. So anyway, we miss her, and also want to recognize her contributions to the commission. There are 5 or 6 different items that we're going to talk about this evening. First and foremost is the marketing and promotions. In August, the long-awaited tourism app debuted on August 29th, just in time for the Santa Calagon Days. If you haven't accessed that and put that on your phone, I'd encourage you to do it. It's a lot of fun. History comes to life inside the Find Your Independence mobile site and application. Beacon Technology delivers location-based nostalgic pictures and multimedia content by using location devices on your phone. The media ranging from historical facts to period gossip begins automatically as you approach the beacon. You can play a game of pioneers to presidents and help solve historical mysteries as you learn and earn badges to be redeemed for a special prize at the end of the game. So we can report more on the actual usage of that as we track that. But the app is available through the App Store. Social media activity has all increased. We've had seen a huge increase in impressions, engagements, and the links. A key component of this is the fact that down below where you look at the website analytics, people who go out and look at our website, which is truly remarkable, and I'm sure you've all reviewed it, but it really is an impressive site. We've had almost 167,000 page views, but what is really telling is the average time on a page, which is 1 minute, 20 seconds, which is it's a lifetime in cyberspace to spend on a page. The top searched page was things to do and heritage information, and the top 2 cities that web viewers used was Chicago and Kansas City. Tourism sales and services. We help provide over 25 different itineraries for groups visiting the area. They included school groups, military groups, and church programs. We have provided welcome bags or sponsorships to over 30 groups since January of this year. And some of those groups are Citizens of Minnesota Bank, Missouri Rural Letter Carriers, one of my favorites, the Red Hat Ladies, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and KC Ghost Tours. We had 2 large events come to Independence this summer. The first one was the Mid-America Summer Institute. It was a 3-day conference, brought in over 250 healthcare providers from all over the Midwest. The second conference was the Gas Rodeo, hosted by Spire Gas. The 3-day event brought over 250 participants, coaches, and families to the Independence area. The host hotel obviously was sold out, but many other hotels were sold out as a result of that as well. Facility and historic site development. Normal operations continued in the Visitor Experience Center and city-owned historic sites with the help of our fantastic 150 active and dedicated volunteers. To better service our out-of-town and local visitors, we have created a satellite welcome center over in the lobby of the Chamber of Commerce. This prominent Truman Road address will provide more convenient access and increased visibility. This location will house the current Explore Board and visitor guides, the tourism site information, dedicated staff, and tourism volunteers. However, the current Visitor Experience Center will continue to, with normal operations, as well as serve as the Tourism Volunteer Training Center. The National Frontier Trails Museum operations of this facility has continued to improve this quarter. Over the past spring and summer, we've continued to welcome hundreds of visitors throughout the country and around the world. Staff has been able to expand the number of projects. Now that the museum is fully staffed, the museum has partnered with other trails and education organizations to increase the museum's visibility and stature, including hosting workshops and conference tours to museum professionals. There have been several improvements to the facility, including the installation of a new exhibit on mountain men and early missionaries, installation of a memorial bench on the grounds, and installation of the elevator, which is almost complete. Hooray, hooray, we get the elevator. The museum's contribution to the community was recognized this past August by receiving the R. Crosby Kemper Award for Achievement in Historic Preservation. So we've listed some historic programs here. There's a whole list. I won't go through the whole list. You can read them for yourself, but we partnered with Jackson County Historical Society for a party like it's 1943, a celebration of the 175th anniversary of the Oregon Trail. And of course, we once again did the Main Street 1849 at Santa Calagon Days. The annual Fun Day brought in a record attendance, and we also participated in the Blue Star Museum from Memorial Day to Labor Day to benefit active duty military families. Site maintenance still continues to be an issue. The approved plan for a combined department called for the Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Department to reduce previous efforts to attract area event business and focus more on heritage tourism. I think this is paying off in spades. The renewed attention to our local history and assets carries with it the need to reinvest in our city-owned historic sites and grounds. The parks maintenance crew continues to make the small repairs necessary and care for the historic sites. The budget currently covers maintenance and basic repair needs. However, the newly completed conditions assessment for the Vale Mansion and the Bingham Wagner Estate show millions of dollars of deferred maintenance, emphasis on millions, and severe funding shortages. As I mentioned the last time I reported to you, while the efforts of the maintenance and preservation staff can keep the sites open, larger repairs and capital improvements will continue to be deferred without more structured, dedicated funding sources. A few more notable repair projects completed this past spring and summer included installation of the security cameras and alarm upgrades for the Bingham Wagner Estate, conditions and assessments completed for the Vale and Bingham Wagner Estates, condition assessments in progress for the National Frontier Trails Museum, Mill Office, and Log Courthouse. Installation of tourism app, beacons on Historia site grounds, we put those around, and routine mowing, landscaping, pruning, sidewalks at all of the historic sites. In closing, it's the opinion of the Tourism Commission that the activities, initiatives, and projects supported by the Transient Guest Tax are in keeping with the program's intent, and that the work of the Parks, Recreation, Tourism Department continues to preserve our city-owned historic sites and attract visitors to our community. The members of the Tourism Commission, on behalf of the residents of Independence and the many visitors to our town, express our gratitude and appreciation to you, Mayor, and the Council for their continued interest and support of providing the best possible historic sites here in Independence. Thank you very much. One other quick comment. We have seen a slight reduction in occupancy. Here, it's about 3% this year. I think we'll blame it on the Royals. But anyway, we hope to see that come back a little bit more. So we think we put the 6.5% tourism guest tax to good use.
Very good.
Any questions or anything?
Thank you, Jim. We appreciate you being here to give the report. Are there any comments or questions from the council? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Appreciate it. Okay, our next report is from the Streets Improvement Oversight Committee. This will be presented by Committee Member Erin Boatwright.
Good evening. My name is Erin Boatwright, and I am representing the Streets Improvement Oversight Committee. The committee met on September 10th and reviewed the status of the program, and I'm happy to present our report to you tonight. The members of our Oversight Committee are Erin Boatwright, Wes Epperson, Joshua Mayfield, Paul Newberry, Gloria Smith, Fran Wagner, and Tim Watkins. The Street Improvement Oversight Committee is appointed by the City Council and is stipulated in the ordinance authorizing the Street Improvement Oversight Committee. Our purpose is to monitor the implementation of the plan, monitor the progress of the reports, and report to the council 2 times each year. Our last report was given on April 9th, 2018. The Streets Improvement Oversight Committee also recently assumed the responsibilities of the License Surcharge Committee. Staff has discussed with us the license surcharge, the dissolution of the License Surcharge Committee, and transfer of responsibilities to the Street Improvement Oversight Committee. Staff also discussed with us the license surcharge and its use and effects, its effects on development. The committee recommended to the City Council a moratorium on the license surcharge for an indefinite period of time to be reviewed annually. The Street Improvement Oversight Committee reviewed the following streets information at the meeting: the street sales tax balance sheet, an update of each of the programmed active projects, the overall schedule for the 11-year program. The street sales tax program has been evaluated. An 11-year program started in 2009 has made good progress. A work program to complete the promised projects has been developed. Program finances are being monitored. The street sales tax revenues generally match the amount of expenses, and the estimated sales tax revenue for this year is $8.55 million. The Oversight Committee has formed the following conclusions. The 2018 Fall Work Program is consistent with the street sales tax program that was promised. The 11-year program has been planned and scheduled to completion. All promised projects are planned to be completed. And we thank you for the opportunity to report this information on behalf of the committee and citizens of the city.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions? Thanks so much. Appreciate it, Sharon. Okay, our next report is from the Independence Park Commission. John Eppert is here to give the report.
Good evening.
Hello.
Everybody here knows who I am, with the exception maybe of Councilman Huff. So my name's John Eppert. I'm the chairman of the Parks Commission and often the entertainment when I show up. So, but first, the Parks Commission is made up of 7 members, and I am the chair and spokesperson. Zach Gall was here for me last time. We oversee and advise the department on the operations that they have, and we make this report just like everybody else semi-annually about the sales tax. And we've been real fortunate because that quarter-cent generates a lot more revenue now than it did a few years ago. It has, one of the things that it has allowed us to do, and is a personal sort of priority for me, is that we've been able to fully staff the Parks Department for the first time in a long time. There have been a lot of years where they've had open positions because we didn't have the money to staff them. And one of the things that really impresses me about the personnel at this Parks and Recreation Department is that so many of them who are so talented have stayed through the lean times and stayed with us in the city and the department because they're dedicated to it. And now we're able to give them some relief from the stresses and strains that they've faced, and to give them the rewards they deserve. So, and we've lessened the opportunity that Eric's going to have a stroke because of all this pressure. So, anyway, one of the main focuses of the sales tax is to support the citizens' priority, which they have clearly stated, to maintain the parks and recreation facilities that we have. And then as a function of that, there have been several projects over the last 6 months or so that we've involved in. The George Owens Nature Park, we've done some improvements out there to the trails. We're going to improve one of the pavilions. The overflow drain broke in one of the lakes, and it needs to be replaced. If you've seen the report, you've noticed that they were kind enough to work all of that work around Enchanted Forest, for which I'm grateful. So that will be ongoing, and the work on the spillway will begin after Enchanted Forest is over, so in the early November. Adventure Oasis is a collection of 4 very large pools, all made of concrete. In order for them to last, they have to be periodically maintained by sandblasting, painting, caulking, and the river, Lazy River, was done first, and the rest will be done later, but that's all part of the sales tax improvement program. We have tennis courts that needs to be resurfacing. The Santa Fe complex is going to be resurfaced. They've got 12 courts. Half of them will be done, have already been done, or in the process. The rest will be done later. And then I do have a question. Who of you know what pickleball is? Until a couple of years ago, I didn't have a clue, didn't know it existed, and yet it has become a phenomenon throughout the country. And
Fastest growing in the nation.
is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll quote you on that. We are converting the tennis courts at Blackburn to pickleball courts. It's about a 3-for-1 conversion rate because they're so much smaller, 2-for-1, something like that. But because pickleball is growing so fast, and tennis at Blackburn isn't really using up the time of the courts. So for those of us who are older and still want to do something active, we'll have lots more opportunities to do it. And then playgrounds, these big playgrounds that we have in lots of these parks, they're fairly expensive. Not only do they take maintenance, but eventually they wear out and they need to be replaced, and they'll run anywhere from $25,000 to $200,000 to replace them. We're replacing the 2 at Fairmont and Glendale parks in this cycle, and there will be more to come because we have lots of them around here. But that's all part of what the sales tax is used for. The other part of maintaining the parks is what we call the Park Revitalization Program. It is the ongoing effort to fix things. And as you know, all of the commissioners on the Parks Commission have assigned parks to go inspect, and we inspect the parks ourselves twice a year in addition to what the department does. I do the athletic complex, and my name went out of my head. Yeah, the other one. It'll come to me in my sleep tonight. But anyway, I do those 2 because I was foolish enough to volunteer for them. What's the other one? North of the river. You don't know? Okay. Anyway, but we all inspect 2 or 3 of the parks, and they, trash cans, the pavilions, the benches, the roadways, the sidewalks, the nets, everything has to be maintained. And the sales tax is all part of that, and it's ongoing year-round that's used for. Family programs, everything from Popsicles in the Park and EcoFest, Hummingbird Festival, in the fireworks show on the 4th of July. The sales tax program supports all those things. Sales tax funds were used to support the grand opening of the farmers market and the activities there. And then the sales tax funds are also used to fund the operations of our 3 biggest facilities, the Memorial Building, the Palmer Center, and the athletic complex. Again, these are buildings that are old, they've been rehabbed, but they need constant maintenance, constant attention, and this is where the money comes from to do those things. And again, because the economy is strong, we have more money to take care of them. So the point of this whole thing is for me to tell you that the group of 7 of us that are the Parks Commission and sit down and go through this stuff on a quarterly basis are pleased with the things that are going on, and we are confident and happy to report that the sales tax funds that we collect are being used for the purpose they were intended, to maintain the parks, to provide the citizens of Independence with the absolute best quality parks and recreations and programs that we can provide. So that's it.
Okay,
Any questions?
thanks, John.
That's only half.
Oh, that's only
It's
half.
what is the month?
I want to hear about the Enchanted Forest.
I was waiting for.
You were waiting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the drum roll.
When does it open?
Enchanted Forest is the 19th and 20th, so it's 2 Fridays from now. 19th and 20th, 26th and 27th are the 4 nights. The special needs night, which we do for free for the special needs community, is the 18th. And that has been really popular. We have had a huge positive response by allowing that constituency to come through without the crowds, without the other commotion that happens. And so we've actually expanded that night. We've doubled the amount of time that we're going to schedule for them to come on that night. The castle's up, rain notwithstanding, and it will be here for at least this year. I can't promise for next year. There may be something different, so we'll have to see. But we are looking forward to another good season and seeing many thousands of people come through and enjoy it. So.
And John, these are volunteers, right? All the people that are the fairy princesses and things of that nature, they're all
that would be me.
volunteers? Well, you're a fairy princess?
You're doing a great job.
Thanks. We don't, nobody gets paid. Now, I will say that the park staff provides a huge amount of support for us.
Oh, sure.
I mean, they, as well as the recreation department staff themselves. We don't do it alone, but there's a staff of 30 to 35 that run the thing and set it up. There have been a crew of us of about 7 or 8 out there for 2 weeks now putting up the castle. And it would be longer and more dangerous, except for Eric gave us a lot of help. So we're appreciative of that. And all the actors, all the people who staff the concession stands and all that, they're all volunteers. Yeah, it's an entirely volunteer activity in that regard. So,
Thank you.
And we couldn't do it without the support of Recreation Department, with Power and Light, the Police Department, the Fire Department. Everybody contributes, and it's just a wonderful thing, and we're grateful. So anyway, I'm going to hand these out.
Give them to me, I'll pass them out for you.
Okay.
All right, save you a little time.
That'd be great. I'm going to print some for Sarah, though, too.
Oh, very good, okay.
Before you go,
Yes.
I know it's a strong economy, but this is the result of hard work over 9 or 10 years by
It is.
Mr. Erfer to get us to this point, to
It-
where it's paying off. And I would be remiss if I wouldn't bring that up. Thank you. Also, I've been championing pickleball. He's heard me for the past 3 years, and this is a result of that. The mayor and I even joined in a tournament, and I fell down on her.
Almost won.
Yes, it was close.
Is that right?
Out of 6 teams, we came in 8th.
You're right.
I've been a racquetball player for a long time. I'm going to have to try this.
It's a lot.
Yes,
that's what I hear, so.
I wouldn't charge you, but I give lessons.
You give lessons? It's all right.
No, this is really a phenomenal, and people who do not exercise at all will go out and do this sport. I mean, it still has the requirements, but they come out, and it's just wonderful.
Well, I know that at Palmer, you can't hardly get in to play. They've got the league set up and everything at the Palmer Center to play the game.
Yes,
So.
they're there 3 days
Yeah.
a week, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday.
So, who knows? We may have to, build an entirely new park.
No, he's kidding.
Yeah, I wish you'd thought of that.
Thank you very much.
John, don't leave yet. Got a question.
Sir.
Loud. Have you seen an uptick since the county's not doing their 1855 Missouri town past couple of years? Have you seen an uptick in your attendance?
Our attendance out there is affected far more by environmental things than it is by other activities going on, with the exception of high school football. If there's high school football going on Friday night, then the crowd tends to be a little lighter. Or if when the Royals were in the World Series, it was strange. We had guys gathered around the fire truck, which had a TV in it, watching the World Series while they were in line. But the weather last year kind of took a nosedive on us, and we had another thing. We lost one of our key people. We lost to a traffic accident the first Saturday of the show, and it really took the wind out of everybody's sails. So last year was a tough year. I don't think Missouri Town closing is going to have as much of an effect as the weather or as some other things locally. The people who come to Enchanted Forest tend to come back every year. They come back and they stand in that 2-hour-long line every year to see the show, and it's just amazing to me. And we try to give them the best that we can, so they'll come back again. But you know, it's become a phenomenon on its own, I guess.
Well, thank you.
Great, it's a wonderful
you.
tradition. Thanks for
Thank you.
continuing to do it. And everything else that the Parks does. Okay, our next presentation is on stormwater sales tax oversight. Scott Smith. Got the comics in the house
I'm
tonight.
glad to be here. I'm building an ark. Actually, what I did is in August, I decided I was going to renovate my lawn, and so I stripped off all of the grass and tilled and then seeded it, and now I've watched it float down to my neighbor's lawn. The stormwater tax was first passed in the year 2000. It had a sunset provision, and in 2010, it was made a permanent tax. And the duty of the Stormwater Tax Oversight Committee is to see that the funds are used for stormwater projects and appropriate stormwater projects. We had 3 objectives. One is to preserve the natural drainage systems. The second is to maintain the existing constructed systems. And thirdly, to build new systems. Since the time of the passage of the stormwater tax, almost $40 million has been spent on capital stormwater projects in our community. And since the last report, there have been several projects around the city, including one at Liberty and Stone and the Walnut Gardens Phase 1. Griffith Place is located in the Mill Creek watershed, and it included installation of 1,900 linear feet of piping. The Walnut Gardens project's located in the Cracker Neck watershed, and the focus was to increase the existing capacity and to relocate storm lines from underneath homes in the area. Oddly, in the past, people did construct, or contractors did construct, stormwater piping under homes. And in fact, there's a house in my neighborhood that has one that goes under his garage. And whenever it overflows, he opens the back door to his garage to let the water continue through. It's a situation that is not normal, but it does occur. Luckily, part of the maintenance during this past time since our last report has been low. There have only been 129 structures cleaned as compared to last year, 246. Total repairs last year were 105. This year, 37. Why? Until last week, we didn't have any rain. And if you don't have rain, structures don't get clogged, they don't crumble, and they don't have to be repaired. There's a number of projects going on at the present time. There are 8 projects of capital improvements that are presently in the acquisitions or construction phase, and there are 7 projects that are in the design phase. One of the things I wanted to talk about for a moment is the synergy of having something like this stormwater tax. You recall the Parks Commission discussed the problems at George Owens with their lake and the problems they had. Well, luckily, because of the way that is constructed, it's more like a detention basin that the Water Pollution Control Department works on. And so one of our employees in water pollution happens to have an expertise that they were able to utilize. Without this stormwater tax, we wouldn't have been able to have that employee on board. We'd be back to two guys with shovels and a supervisor like we were before the stormwater tax. Once again, it's fall, the leaves are falling. I remind all citizens that the drainage pipes are not the place for your leaves. If you fill the leaves, your house will flood and your neighbors' houses will flood. Please bag them and send them off to the dump. If you have any questions for me, I'll be glad to answer.
Thank you, Scott. Are there any comments or questions from the council? Okay, thanks very much. I'm sorry. Pardon me.
I don't have anything for Scott. Thank you, Scott. But
Okay.
I will direct my comments to the city manager. With our heavy rain, perhaps this may be a good time to take a look at Crisp Lake, maybe to get some thoughts of what we need to take a look at there and get some good baseline of what's out there, what kind of work could be done, should be done, a little historical analysis of that. Just kind of get that moving on the time frame so we have some good background information so we can move forward with whatever decisions we need to make for that section of town.
Be happy to do that. Thank you.
Councilman? Nothing? Okay. All right, thank you very much. Our final presentation this evening is the final report of the Downtown Redevelopment Coordinating Committee. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, as you'll recall, last September, in accordance with Independence for All strategic plan, the council approved the creation of the 10-member citizen committee that we named the Downtown Redevelopment Coordinating Committee. The intent of this committee was really to take 16 long dormant plans, had well over 80 recommendations in those plans, many of which never came to fruition, and figure out which of those, as you sifted through those, still had relevancy and advancing the goals of your strategic plan. This committee has spent the better part of a year studying other successful redevelopment plans in downtowns throughout the Kansas City metropolitan area. They have developed a rigorous set of scoring criteria to help find an impartial and strategic way to vet through those 80-plus recommendations. Tonight, you're going to hear a final report from the consultant who helped guide and staff that committee, Sabin Yanez from CFS. This is not at all an end to that process. In fact, one might argue that this is a beginning as we look at our development of our downtown core area over the next 10 to 15 years. So I will let Sabin present this to you and then be happy to answer any questions thereafter.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Well, good evening. And I will do my best to step back, look at my slide, and then go through the presentation. I would first start with thanking a number of people in your community. It was really an honor for us to have the opportunity to work with the City of Independence, in particular several of your citizens, but I would like to recognize the members of the committee. The chair was City Council Member Kurt Doherty, and the members on the committee, Linda Brosum, Brian Conley, Tom Garland, Jill Getman, Jennifer Manulelu, Matthew Medley, Brian Schultz, Monty Short, Linda Ellis Sims, Trevor Tilton, and Dr. Alan B. Williams. We were also led from the beginning by Lauren Palmer, who has moved on to another position outside the city. And I would like to thank that group, particularly in front of all of you, because really we became the consultants that kind of did the legwork under all the hard work they did in the presentations, in the committee meetings, in all the research they did. So again, thank you for the opportunity to do that work. Well, the recommendations of the committee and really the expectations of what we were trying to accomplish was moved toward the design that would improve the quality of life for all the citizens of Independence, maximize the historical and cultural attractiveness of Independence, promote the attractions in your heritage district, and promote economic development and job creation, enhancing the attractiveness of many of the features that you have in your community. One of the things that we found that's really, really cool about Independence is you have so many things going on for you right now. There's a great amount of tradition. You have a lot of activity centers that are very unique to this community and to this city. And the excitement that the committee members had on when they were appointed to this committee that we felt was, how do we move this momentum forward? How do we continue to help the city prosper and grow and see a light to a greater future? In much of what we did here, we were really looking to collaborate also with many of the activities that are going on in your community. And we met a number of neighborhood groups, a number of folks. I do want to thank you also. I know from the original goal was to have this presentation in September, and then there was a direction to go ahead and do more outreach with your community groups. And we found that to be very effective. I'll go over some of those details in the presentation here. Well, what are the recommendations, or what the recommendations are not? And I want to cover that real quick, and I'm going to step back a little bit. First off, I'll say it is a citizen-driven initiative. And again, we were brought in after the process started, and I'll walk you through that process here momentarily. What we also learned from the citizens was that they wanted their recommendations to represent the certain places in an overall vision for the city where it would be smart for the city to lead those initiatives, and other initiatives where it'd be smart for the city to embrace the grassroots efforts that are going on in the community and work collaboratively with them. So again, this is not a one-size-fits-all for everything that might go into this plan. The recommendations that are in the report that we sent, a draft report to you all through the city manager, also represent one of the things we found in these 16 studies, over 400 different concepts of ideas. These were studies done around your community for over the last 15 to 20 years. And all those ideas represented over $1 billion of unfunded ideas, needs, goals that the citizens of your community had. And when you boil down the recommendations of the work of the committee, their recommendations really represent only about 20% of that $1 billion of effort. And that was kind of through this prioritization process that the city manager mentioned. We also looked at this as part of our goal, and what we were brought on board to do was not only help the committee figure out how to prioritize over 400 ideas and what really represents what might be most important to this committee and the citizens of Independence, but also then to take a step further into the process, something that our consultant team has had a lot of experience doing, which is looking beyond that and saying, okay, these are great ideas. What are the mechanisms to move these forward to actually implement these ideas? And a lot of that has to do with funding. It has to do with strategies of funding. And so part of our work was to not only prioritize these ideas and synthesize them down into meaningful initiatives, but then to look at what are the tools that could help you get there. Within that process, we always looked at the goals of how funding would come into play, as these initiatives would represent a dollar amount, but also then there would be this goal of how you would leverage city dollars for more dollars, so whether it be through public-private investment, whether it be through initiatives that are grassroots, and we'll go into some of those also in the presentation. But certainly this is really a roadmap, a blueprint of work to come, of how to move forward, at least in the eyes of this committee, and what they believe is really a great vision for this heritage area of Independence. So the next few slides I'm going to walk you through are going to cover the process, the historical background of the committee. This committee, actually, the ideas of it really came to be as we looked at the history in 2016, when there was a citizen survey done here in the city of Independence, which generated some extremely high numbers. The vast majority of citizens, over 90%, or roughly 89 to 90%, who favored that more needed to be done in your downtown area. There was this high percentage of people also in the survey that also wanted to see how that downtown area was redeveloped, revitalized, and connected to your neighborhoods and other activity centers. So those became really founding principles, and when we looked at the history of why the council then moved forward with the formation of this committee itself. There were a number of things that you should also take credit for long before this committee was formed. Things like the farmers market, a number of these different studies that are very current that we were able to bring into play with the committee and look on how they fit into an overall priority to the city. The city master planning process was absolutely critical in this as well, because the city's master plan actually set establishment of some goals that we believe became kind of the umbrella over the work of the committee. So anything that we would do within the committee or the committee's work, we would always want those to come back to the goals of the city's strategic plan. That way, there would never be a point in time where, even as council members change and people move on, that you could always come back and say it's founded on the goals of the city. And we think that's very important in your work, because again, we'll be gone at some point, your committee members are gone, but how does it always relate back to the goals of the city? And that was really important. So in 2017, the city council did approve the formation of the committee. They also approved the city's master plan, Independence for All, which we found to be very valuable in kind of this umbrella of goals and objectives for us. The goals of the DRCC were to advise the city staff on project priorities, to advise the city on public-private partnership opportunities. And what we saw in that is there are opportunities where private development can work very closely with the public sector and how you leverage dollars together to make great improvement. And then to advise the city staff on funding options for those prioritized initiatives. In November, December 2017, this was actually before we as consultants were brought on board, the committee actually did several field trips, visioning trips to other communities who had made initiatives moving forward with how do they revitalize, transform their downtown communities. Those trips were to Grandview, Gladstone, Lenexa. Very different ideas from each of those communities, very different thought processes. But again, back to the point I was making earlier, one of the things that we found that we think is a tremendous advantage for Independence, even over those communities, is that you have an existing core, you have an existing downtown, you have existing heritage facilities and activity centers that are a great draw that could be even greater. In January and February, we were brought on board to help with this process of how do you look at 16 plans and over 400 ideas and make sense of that, and bring those ideas into some sort of process to help the committee understand and prioritize based on this, again, this umbrella of goals from the strategic plan and the goals of the committee itself. So from March to May, we worked in developing the criteria for the committee. I should back up and say the committee actually brought in a representative of every one of those 16 plans to do a presentation to the committee so the committee could understand what was in each of those plans. The committees had every one of those plans available. Many of them did exhaustive research on their own to understand these projects, these initiatives, these ideas. And then from that process, we as consultants developed this criteria to help them marry these ideas to the goals and objectives, and then a method of how you might rank those as best as possible. I would mention here too, one of the things that we have in our experience in doing this process, we've done this for other communities and helping them look at criteria to help them assess how do you prioritize projects, because there's always more needs than there are money. And so this is something that we're very experienced at, and one of the things that we bring into that is not only your goals and objectives, but we also look at the regional goals and objectives, because as you seek other funding opportunities that are outside of the City of Independence, the more you can marry up to regional goals, the better chance you can be successful at grant funds, leverage dollars, federal and state dollars, and we've had a lot of experience with that. So again, it was kind of all these pieces brought into this criteria to do what we believe gives these projects and these initiatives the best chance of leveraging into the future. And some of these slides are hard to read, but again, they're in the report. This is an example of how we began to, in June and July, take the prioritized projects and initiatives, hone them down into now looking at different types of funding strategies, different sources of funding, and begin to marry those up. Where would they fit? Again, these are no guarantees, but these are from our experience, knowing you have initiatives on that list that meet criteria for other sources of funding, whether it be public or private. And so we began to put those together and put them into a very detailed matrix, which is in the report, so that the committee could then have a better understanding as they looked at the priorities. And then in August and September, that's when we began to do some of the outreach. After, it was interesting in this point because we had actually kind of created the draft, brought it to the committee. They were very supportive of bringing it forward. And then the committee discussion really was what brought it back to the idea of having an outreach portion of the work. That really was not initially in their task, in their scope. But many of them in that final, what they thought was their final meeting, in their discussion, felt like there was a desire to vet this with many of their neighborhood groups and the community groups that they work with. Because they felt like it was important to have that, so as they brought this forward to you all could get a sense of where many of those organizations landed on these ideas. And before I get into the recommendations, real quickly, just on some of the sources, I wanted to share this slide so you get a sense of the different sources of revenues that are available and out there. And the goal was, even in the list of projects and initiatives in the plan, all along the goal was 50% public funds, 50% leveraged investment. So again, keep that in mind. I don't think it's committee's goal to ever say, here's the final dollar amount, that's the city's tab. That's never was the goal of the committee, never was the direction for the committee to us as consultants, and that's what drove this discussion of how do we look at other resources. So this is a list on this slide of the many different resources that, and there are others that we identified in the process for the committee, everything from community improvement districts to the Mid-America Regional Dollars, which the city has been successful in getting those funds on, and you just are recently successful again. The MoDOT cost share program. One of the things I know in my career, I spent 20 years at MoDOT before being a consultant 14 years. Missouri is unique, and Independence is also fits the mold. State highways make up a lot of the main streets of our communities. And so how well you partner with the DOT is really, really critical. And it's also a tool, though, on how you can leverage resources to do some great things on main street corridors that are state highways in your community. There are other sources, public-private investment dollars, opportunity zone, which the city is already well underway and looking at. There are different, we found in the committee members, many of them were talking about kind of localized community improvement districts, some that exist today and others that they would like to look at forming. This kind of goes back to that initiative I mentioned where the committee said the city doesn't always have to be the one driving it. Maybe there are neighborhood groups and grassroots groups that the city can collaborate with and help them. And so these are just, again, some of the sources that we identified in the process. So now to the recommendations, and again, these are in more detail in your report, but I'll run through these real quickly. There were really three groups of priority initiatives: the Independence Square itself, downtown connectivity, we called it, and then accessibility enhancements. The interesting thing about these categories was very high in everyone's goal was the connectivity of, I'll call it multimodal active transportation, whether it be bicycle, pedestrian, better sidewalks, improved facilities, and looking at how we connect your neighborhoods to these activity centers within the community. There also was a high desire to see, which has been on your list of ideas and projects, gateway improvements and welcoming people into your community and into the area and really making a better, a more attractive, visionary, welcoming to these different areas within your community. And then the square beautification was high on the priority list. And again, it was interesting because I forgot to mention, the downtown redevelopment committee's region really was made bigger, not by us, but by the committee, which really encompasses a broader area than just the square because of this idea of how do we connect these areas to the heart of your community. Another key recommendation was on housing. And I know this is an initiative that the council has been very involved in to date, but very strongly in the recommendations in the document is a support of evaluating a housing revitalization initiative. We want the city to consider all opportunities and options on how that might take place, entertain the idea of cooperative agreements and other funding mechanisms to help, looking at tax credits, grants, the opportunity zone aspects, and even a revolving loan fund. There are other people on the committee that were very passionate about that, but the committee was wholly in support of making sure this was included in the recommendations that we brought forward. And then lastly, as the city manager mentioned, the report is done, but needless to say, this is more of a roadmap to move forward, and there's work to be done to move this ahead. And so the committee also had recommendations on what they believe were the next steps that the council should consider on how you move these initiatives forward. These are specific, developing a plan for advancing the projects, even to looking at the formation of a specific working group that would be focused on this plan and the ideas in this plan and how they move forward. Again, this plan is it's not a 3-year plan or a 5-year plan. It could be a 20-year roadmap. It really is driven by a number of factors, but the point was the committee felt there needed to be a guiding team, a guiding ship to keep these initiatives moving forward because they were that important to the success of the community. Another recommendation was pursuing the discussions with the Steamboat Arabia Group. It is in the report. That was something that was brought forward as the committee was meeting, that the Steamboat Arabia is looking for another place to land in a couple of years. The city we did have some discussions with them, we did as consultants at the city's okay that we do that, just to get an understanding of what that might bring to a plan like this. And there are some opportunities there that we think should be vetted further to look at this as really the potential for a great additional showcase feature to the heritage aspect you have in your community. We did see too, in all the plans we looked at, there was the City Hall master plan work, and we had that presentation as well. The committee felt like it was important to continue working on identifying the aspects of a civic center. This idea in the term civic center was more important to them because really that's what they began to see in other communities. It wasn't just a city hall, it was really a transformation of a downtown to make it much more of a multi-use facility where you could have retail, you could have other aspects that are a economic draw to your community, and the government aspect really is a secondary component of a revitalization of a civic downtown. And then to continue to work on development of a master plan of finance. One of our team members is an expert in that, Craig Davis, and Brad Scott. They work together on helping us look at strategies. There's more work to be done in this area as you begin to hone in on specific ideas and initiatives that you will want to have a better understanding of how those dollars will come into play, how you leverage those dollars with other tools that are out there and move those initiatives forward. And so with that, I will stop. And I know I may have gone pretty quickly, but I wanted to get through that. And I did bring other team members. Jim Schusler actually was our project manager. I want to thank Jim. Jim really headed up the work with the committee day to day, and Craig is here as well. So, but we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Saban. Thanks, Craig and Jim and Brad, who's not here tonight, for helping us with this kind of, latter portion of this planning process and really helping to communicate this, the vision of and the recommendations of the committee, who has worked so hard over these last many, many months to bring forward this recommendation. So it's exciting to see. Are there comments or questions from the council? Yes, Councilmember DeLucy.
I don't know what the very number one priority is of the committee. What is the number one priority that the committee has identified?
I think the best way to answer that is it's this list of these three areas, because if you, what we saw is and what they saw is as you vet more work in drilling into these, there will be some that are low-hanging fruit that will come forward, and there are others that will take longer time.
What page is that on? Honest to goodness, I read the whole thing. You're talking about, it's not numbered, okay. My pages aren't numbered. Downtown Redevelopment Coordinating Committee recommendations, 3 priority initiatives. This page here?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
But we do have, there should be a more detailed, probably on the spreadsheet, is that right? But we also have a handout here that I can provide you that has all of them broken down.
That would be great.
Yeah, yeah.
Prior to the committee making the priority list, was there an inventory made of the existing buildings that the city already has? For example, we have the Memorial Building, we have the water park, we have the water department vacant building, we have the health department building, we have a lot of vacant buildings. And so I'm curious on whether we did an actual inventory of the buildings we already own to see what buildings we actually need. And if we haven't done that, I would like that done.
Yeah, part of the work that we did with Trainer Architects, it was a 2-phased approach. So part of it was a city employee space allocation needs study. So not just City Hall, but as you're referencing, all of those facilities. And then the second part of that was looking specifically at the building we're in here tonight and the needs of this building, how they align with the space allocation needs, but also the ongoing maintenance and infrastructure costs of this. And we'd be happy to get you another copy of that report if it would be helpful.
Well, it's just, I don't know that we need a civic center. I don't know that we need that. I don't know what we own right now. I noticed that there's a suggestion that we build another park in Fairmount. We have lots of parks. I don't know if we need a park. So do we have an inventory of where the parks are and what, I mean, right now we're trying to get rid of some of our green spaces that we call parks because we just can't take care of all of them. I would just like to have an inventory made before we do a wish list of what we want this city to look like in 20 years. That's all I'm saying, and I do appreciate all your hard work. I really do. But I'd like this inventory of what we own before we talk about what we want.
I think maybe this isn't a perfect analogy, but if you think of it like a funnel, so we've got, you know, for example, the Parks Master Plan, and then you get a little narrower, we've got the different 16 plans that Saban mentioned. So, you know, Fairmont had a plan and Inglewood's had a plan. This was really about saying, let's get some focus and prioritize, so kind of the tip of that funnel. So yes, we do have all of those reports. This was really about saying, through the Citizens Evaluation Committee, what should maybe be the first couple of things through the door, through the fence.
I'd like 24 Highway fixed. I would. I mean, we went down to the Blundwell Cafe, and 24 Highway was blocked. It was closed because of flooding. And I mentioned Crisp Lake to Councilmember Perkins. I said, you know, what's going on with Crisp Lake? I mean, I do appreciate everything you've done and all these conversations you've had, but these are basic things we need to take care of before we get to the wish list. So that's my one concern. And my other concern is I would like a complete listing of all the economic incentives the city has, the NIDs, the TIFs, the TDDs, I mean, the transportation development districts, all those things, because I'm concerned, you know, we're talking about doing a master community improvement district that'll go down 291 over to 23rd Street in order to fund some of these things, and I'm concerned how much of our commercial space is not going to be extra tax districts. I'm really concerned about that. You know, we could say that our tax right now is 7.6, not down on 39th Street. No way. And so if we do these other special assessments, what do we have left?
I will just comment on this. That's kind of when I share the recommendations, that kind of falls under the category of further master plan of finance work, because we recognize that.
Yeah.
So as you begin to look at this, I'll say these lists of projects and initiatives, there is a need for more of that type of work. But on the broad sense, I mean, again, that's work to be done. That wasn't in the scope of work right now. It was more of I'll call it a 50,000-foot view of what are some of the tools that could be used to move these forward. And then as you drill into some of these, there will be more work to be done with the plans of finance.
And I'm just a little gun shy, because I voted in favor of a resolution a couple of years ago, and it is being thrown back at me every time we have anything to do with solar or electric cars or charging stations. Well, you passed this resolution, therefore we're going to do this. So before I support a resolution for $200 million, I would have to hear a lot more about our needs versus our desires. And I do appreciate everything you've done, because I know you've worked really hard. So thank you.
You bet.
Questions?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Perkins?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for all the hard work that you have done. I would take exception to the thought of this being a wish list. The committee was to get together and put these 16 plans together. Some of them that have dated back to where I was on the city council the first time, so you've seen how much progress has been moved on some of those. To take a strong look and formulate to see what a good overall plan should be. And we need to have a good foundation. So I wouldn't consider this a wish list. I would consider this a list that we look at so we can lay foundation, so we can move forward to do the work that needs to be done on the western side of Independence. Most recently, the Fairmont plan was completed. We have, I don't know, I'd say close to $1 million in plans just sitting around with no good interaction between them, no good weaving of what's needed from them, and we've been able to put that together. We've been able to come up with some good ideas on how to start. This is a 10, 15-year plan. Karen, when you and I were out there walking with Mr. Walker and Tom Scannell, I made the comment, I won't be on this council when Fairmont is completed. But what I want to leave is a strong foundation so somebody else can build upon what I started, what we started. That's the point of this. If we continue to not move forward, take these action steps, take the direction that this committee has given us, and work through the citizens that has helped us, we might as well not do anything and just stand still and let deterioration take place. We've been able to identify the connectivity. There's been some great outgrowth of enthusiasm with the Inglewood group. We're already moving forward with the CID. There's an action group there that's energized and ready to do something different. The city has taken bold steps. We've acquired the CMH building to help get rid of blight and move forward there. Grow, grassroots of Western Independence. They are taking hold and they are looking how can we use housing as a unique source of rebuilding neighborhoods. So there's energy there. Fairmont, there's great amount of energy there. We were just at the ribbon cutting, Karen, with Blendwell. That's a $1.3 million project that they thought fit, and greatly so, to put right there. They didn't have to, but they did, and I'm very appreciative of that. The group in Fairmont, they are excited, they're enthused. When we were walking the neighborhood there, we were looking at some of the places off of 24 Highway, Wilson Road. What can we do here? What is the foundation that we need to lay here? And part of that plan is a green space there, not necessarily a park with a full-on play set, but the neighborhood over there, they want a green space so they can play football, rugby. This is stuff that has come out of, well, this Fairmont plan that had citizen engagement for almost a year. And this is what came out of that. It's not trying to add something to the city to take care of, but it's trying to do something uniquely with an area that I'll argue is dying. And this is what has come out of this. The first district has a unique character about itself. I have the Independence Square with its own unique history and character, Inglewood with its own unique character and history, Maywood, Fairmont. Is connecting these together and have a good foundation to where we can move forward. So the work that was done here is a great foundation that we can leave and let the next council, let the next mayor take this ball and move forward. I think that's about it. I really appreciate everything that you've done. I think this is a great plan, and it is a great way to start moving forward. I mean, we have a lot of work to do. I mean, there's no doubt about it. The financing is going to be a unique phase of this. It's not going to be a full $200 million shot. That number freaks me out. But if you understand and take a look at it, it's something that we need to look at on a yearly basis and see how we can work with that. Have a CID meeting this month with the stakeholders in Fairmont to see what some of that action plan said. They're ready to go. They're ready to roll. So we're having a meeting, get some basic information foundation there of that. Mayor Larson from Sugar Creek has been very active on that side. He's been a strong partner with this. He sees the benefit of that. So there's a lot of enthusiasm here, and I think we need to keep the ball rolling and get that foundation built. So thank you for everything you've done.
Great.
Any other comments or questions? What I think is exciting is this is the community's list. I mean, this isn't we didn't sit up here, the 7 of us, make up a list of things that we want to do. So that's why I think, this process has been so valuable, because any of us elected or living in this city could sit down and make a list of things that we would like to get done. And what I also think is encouraging is nothing that is being recommended is really a specific project where, it's more of a vision, and some of these things will get done, some of them won't. There'll be changes over time, but the vision is there, and it doesn't supplant any of our other current projects or needs. I mean, we know we have some basic infrastructure needs that need to get addressed no matter what, and nothing in these recommendations push anything that we need to address aside. What I'm interested in hearing, Sabin, is you did 18 community meetings after the committee had essentially completed their work, and there was, some good discussion on this council about the necessity or the timing of doing that citizen engagement. So why don't you tell us what what those were like and what the responses were that maybe informed your presentation tonight?
Sure. Let me invite Jim, if I can have Jim come forward. Jim was at almost all the meetings. I was at many, but Jim covered, I think, all of them as our PM. But I'll start with this and say consistently, and I won't be able to put a percentage on it, but I'll just say overwhelmingly there was a tremendous amount of support from all the groups, high percentage, over 80%, that these were things that needed to move forward. These were great initiatives. And as you mentioned, I breezed through this quickly in the presentation, but even when we looked at plans of finance, right, or how do you finance projects, we brought projects that are already on your CIP, already in the works, into this list. So kind of when you ask the question about priority, many of these things already have the momentum and actually have budget behind them in some regard. What we looked at then is how do we leverage more to do it maybe faster or better or more effectively. So there was a lot of excitement around that idea of, okay, it wasn't just these ideas of the committee, it was you're actually bringing us all together. Somebody needed to make sense of all of these ideas.
Right.
So I'll stop there. Maybe Jim, you'll have some comments.
And we
Thank
have
you.
some people today in the audience that helped organize those, Mark McDonald, Lori, Jennifer, I don't know, and others perhaps. Each committee, each meeting, each association was very dynamic, exciting. They're very pleased to have us. I actually met just Saturday with the men of Methodist Church here that wanted to know what's going on, and probably were very active as well. Just going through Fairmont again, as we talked about, figure out Crisp Lake, figure out the flooding. We want more connectivity, and we want a park. Who's Jennifer? Mark's like, again, connectivity between the library and the square, very important. Connectivity to us and to other amenities in the area. The square, pretty much, we have been doing a lot of work already with Main Street America. We need to work together, the city, to move these projects forward. Let's talk and move those. There's a lot of exciting things that they're part of. Beautification is definitely highest, one of their highest needs, and how can we do that? Inglewood, continue with the housing was definitely their highest need, but also work with the Sterling Winter intersection, which is very prominent as part of the new Truman Connect project that just recently got funded at $100,000, but also has $4.6 million of STP funds ready. And then there's another $2 million for Highway 40. There really is a lot of money. I'd say $10 million already of that 200 has already been leveraged within the last 9-10 months and is already ready to go with your community. And so there's a lot of exciting things, and people are recognizing those as well. We met with both Rotaries. We met with the chamber on 2 different occasions. I don't know if there's any summary points you have to that, but ultimately, as Saban said, a lot of excitement and interest, and keep moving forward. These are projects that have been on the books 10, 15 years, and it's time to set them in motion and try to get the ones that are the highest priority in today's world moving forward. So in general, no real negativity, mostly excitement. Some people said they want to see more of the heritage parks, such as the Blair House and the Bingham Wagner added to the list. Crisp Lake was one to be added to the list. Some additional sidewalks and connectivity added to the list. So there were some people that had their own specialty interests that brought those forward that we heard and have documented.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Anything else? Okay, thank you again. Thank you to our wonderful committee who just dedicated so much time and energy. I think we took a very unique approach on this. And, I'm excited to continue to have this discussion on the council and moving forward on the committee recommendations. So thank you again. Staff reports. May I say clerk, city boards, and commissions.
Thank you. Mayor and members of the council, in front of you, you should have a copy of my report. We have a couple things to consider, and then on the back of that is the current vacancies, expired terms, and upcoming expirations for your review. First off, we have the Japanese Sister City Committee. Recommendation has been received to reappoint Brenda Schultz, Rosemary Trimble, Eric Wagner, and Roger Swick. So I'm looking for direction to add a resolution to the next meeting.
Okay, unless there is an objection from the council, we will add those as resolutions for the October 15th meeting. Is there any objection? Okay, hearing none.
Great. The next is the Tree Commission. There's been a recommendation received to reappoint Darla Eames to the Tree Commission.
Okay, unless there's an objection from the council, we will add that resolution to the October 15th meeting. Are there any objections? Okay, hearing none.
And next, on the Board of Equalization, we've had issues keeping an alternate on that board. This is the Jackson County Board of Equalization. By state law, we're allowed to appoint the Director of Finance. So I'm looking direction to add a resolution to appoint the Director of Finance as the alternate.
Okay, again, if there's no objection from the council, we will add that resolution to the October 15th meeting for consideration. Are there any objections? Okay, hearing none.
All right. Next, we have the Independent Square Advisory Board. We have a recommendation to reappoint Austin Connolly and appoint Matt Medley and Sean Fight.
Okay, if there are no objections from the council, we will prepare resolutions for the October 15th meeting. Are there any objections? Okay, thank you very much. I have one more. Are there any other topics any council member wishes to move forward? Okay, I just have one item. We have some additional information on bill number 18-091, which was considered by the council on October 1st. I would like to make a motion to renew bill number 18091 to place on the October 15th meeting for consideration.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Could I ask what bill it is? I don't know what 18091 is.
Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 18091 is the rezoning for the Spanish project.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll on the motion to renew.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
DeLucy,
Sure, yes.
Van Camp,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes. Motion passes. Mr. City Manager, anything else this evening?
Just very quickly, Madam Mayor, members of the council, our next meeting will have a little different look and feel as this represents the last meeting of our vaunted city attorney, Dayla Bishop Schwartz. So I wanted to publicly thank her for her many years of service to the city and certainly her presence in this forum, and wish her well in retirement.
Thank you so much, Dayla, for your years and years of service to this organization and to our community. You will be greatly missed. Thanks so much. Okay, we are adjourned.